So we've previously looked at determinants of matrices, and now we need to look at the inverse of a matrix. This is very important because we can't divide matrices, but instead we multiply by the inverse. So if we think like, hey, what's 16 divided by 8? Really what we do with matrices, instead we say, what's 16 times 1 over 8? We just multiply by the inverse. It gives us the same response. So here, the formula for the inverse of a matrix, it's going to be 1 divided by the determinant. Well, the determinant is AD minus BC. And this is times a brand new matrix. Now the new matrix is we switch the position of the A and the D. So the D is now the first term and the A is now the last term. And the B and the C, they stay in the same position. However, they now become opposites. So that's a negative B and that's a negative C. So that is our formula for the determinant of a the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. So here, what we want to do is we want to do 1 over the determinant of this matrix. Well, that's 4 times 2 minus 7 times 3. And we're going to multiply this by a new matrix where we switch the first and the last terms. So that's 2 and a 4. And the 3 and the 7 stay in the same position, but now they're negatives. So cleaning this up, this is 8 minus 21, which is a negative 13, times this matrix. Now I'm pretty sure that the textbook actually will leave this just like this, but we learn scalar multiplication, so we can multiply this in, and we get negative 2/13, positive 3/13, positive 7/13, and then negative 4/13. And that is our final answer. So fractions are key, and that's fine. We leave fractions because those are going to get some weird decimals. But that's it. It's 1 over the determinant times this weird new matrix. So make sure that you understand this formula. But it's one of those things where you don't have to worry about committing it to memory. The more practice you get with it, the more it sticks. Okay, now what about the inverse of a 3 by 3 matrix? Well, this is actually a little bit more challenging. So for us, we won't get involved with it. Now I'm still going to have you do it because it's important to know and it's important to use these. However, we're going to just use our calculator for this. So going back to our calculator, if I go to my matrix submenu, I can edit a matrix. So here I have A is blank, so I'm going to edit that. I have a 3 by 3 matrix, so I put 3 by 3, and I put in the values here. So I know I have a 4, 7, 8, negative 2, 3, 4, 8, 5, and 2. So we have this matrix. So once I have this is actually the nice part. I can quit this, and if you remember from our matrix menu before when we had the determinant, we went over here to this math menu and we chose the determinant. Well, what I'm actually going to do instead, I'm just going to select this matrix. And you have to think, well, what is the inverse? Like with my example 8, what was the inverse there? 1 over 8. So before, when we found inverses of linear equations and inverse equations, inverse functions, we denoted the inverse function of y as y to the negative first. So if I have this matrix A, I just give it a negative 1 subscript. That says, hey, this is the inverse. And once I hit enter, I get this. Now actually, if I do math enter enter, I can change this into a fraction and look at what I get here. So this is my new answer for this problem. This is the inverse of this function. Now that's really, really important, and that's really, really helpful. And you're going to see why in just a bit. But by dealing with this, we don't have to memorize any crazy formulas. We don't have to do any crazy math. It's just using the calculator. So because we are using the calculator and that's it, best advice I can give you is make sure you put all the correct values in. You want to make sure you don't accidentally type in a 5 here, switch the positions of any of these numbers, because if you switch these numbers, then this answer is going to be incorrect. So just make sure that you are aware and you check that what you put in was correct. But that's it. That's all we need to do. So we need to find the inverse of a 3 by 3 matrix using our calculator, and find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix using this formula.